Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's bloody David Icke. Welcome back to my channel, sir. How are you?
I'm all right. And I tell you what, just before you started, I heard the words recording, which was kind of comforting after the last time.
I'm lucky I said I was going to mention this. Okay, the shame of all shames. Last time, guys out there, that I get the great David Icke on my channel. We're having the most mind-blowing conversation about the AI god Yalda Boath and all this incredible stuff that a lot of you have never heard. And I suddenly realize we're not recording. The shame, the shame. I could have gone into denial, but I didn't. But also, like I just said to you, over 611 videos on this channel that I've been doing this for years and years, running the biggest conferences in the world. How is it possible that you hit record and then what? You double wobbled the finger? And also, I've had stuff taken off my laptop before, right in front of me, Zooms that I've recorded, gone, vanishing in front of my eyes without me touching them. And on my YouTube channel, missing videos, mostly the Rife machinery that heals the body, done by a beautiful man called John. And his company Spooky too. Every time I've hosted him and his life-saving machines, they steal his videos. The scumbags out there, the ass hats. But
Well,
anyway,
if it's any comfort, it's not the first time it's happened to me. Mm. No, I've quite a few times over the many years. I've done an interview and they've said, "Oh, forgot to record." So it ain't the first.
gosh, it must be your intimidating prowess, David
Oh
Icke.
no, it must be something.
Anyway, let's talk about aliens because, as I've seen them in real life, physical ETs, put out a whole well, not a meme, but a graphic of the ones I've actually seen. Been talking about it for years. You've been talking about it for years, and now finally the government. Come on, John. They took a few years, didn't they, to catch up with this? But here they are. What are your thoughts on what's being presented to us?
Well, I said around the turn of the year that this would be the year of the alien, and I said that because I was seeing there was this Steven Spielberg movie, which I think is coming out on June the 12th. Basically the next in the line of the Alien Spielberg movies after E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and all that stuff. And I thought, having observed the way it all works for nearly 40 years, I thought they're not going to miss a peg like that, and or indeed they're planning a peg like that. And it took weeks after the turn of the year for Trump and the Pentagon to announce they were going to release files on unexplained um, craft that they have in their possession. The thing that I would strongly caution about, however, is of course that authority lies. Well, that's what it does. And the higher the authority, the more it lies. And so when they are now saying we're going to reveal things about the possible alien presence, then we've got to be very careful because uh, they won't be doing it for the good of humanity and for transparency. They'll be doing it for the fact that it suits them for some reason to reveal whatever they'll reveal, and it won't be the full story, of course. So when I look back to the 1990s, for instance, I went to America in 1996 to talk about these things, talking to nobody in those days. And the whole UFO thing was flying around. I mean, well, literally flying around. The They had these whole life expo conferences, which were held in various American cities, and I was the conspiracy guy at the end of the night when everyone had gone home.
Oh,
But it allowed me to go around the various speakers and listen to what they had to say during the day when there was actually somebody there. And it was very much about the fact that this UFO phenomenon was real. And I also, because I was traveling around for America in 1996 for the first time anyway, for 3 months. And so I was meeting a lot of people. I mean, more than, speaking to vast audiences, I wasn't. I was meeting a lot of people, a lot of whistleblowers and stuff. And people who were ex-military and were in some way knowledgeable about this whole subject. And it was then just dismissed by the authorities. It was like anything from a weather balloon to, oh, you're talking about little green men, and that was the usual reaction. And then I noticed about maybe 2 years ago, maybe a bit longer, suddenly authority in America was taking the whole phenomenon more seriously. And immediately, being suspicious of authority, I thought, why the change? And it's gone on and it's gone on and it's gone on. And when I, like I say, heard about the Spielberg film, I thought they're going to peg this to something, and that's obviously what they are doing. The first release of files were like, they were kind of seen a lot of them before, and they say they're going to release more as they go along as the weeks pass. But like I say, they're not going to tell us the truth in the interests of transparency. They're going to tell us a version of truth that suits them. And I'll tell you one thing too. I don't think for a moment that this UFO phenomenon has one explanation. I think it has a number of explanations, all of which very possibly are true. And I think they are. One, which I came across in the 1990s when I was talking to whistleblowers and stuff in America, is that some of these UFOs are flown by humans.
Mm-hmm.
You have this anti-gravity craft technology where they throw an electromagnetic field around the craft and they basically disconnect it from the normal laws of physics. That's why they do these amazing things. And we think, well, how is that possible? Because it's been very clear to me since the 1990s that there are very clearly two levels of technological development. There's the apparent cutting edge in the public arena, and then there's the cutting edge outside the public arena. And it's my view that the reason that as this technological control system, it's what it is has been rolled out, and you've seen it getting faster and faster and faster, you've not had a situation where people have sat round a table strumming their fingers, waiting for the next level of technology to be invented, discovered, before they can move on. In fact, the pace of change has got faster and faster and faster. And I would suggest that that's because this technology already existed outside the public arena in the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases, and the secret projects. And so they're playing it out in a sequence. And the sequence is designed as fast as they can, but the sequence is designed to kid the public that it's organic, that they're just expanding and advancing technology as a matter of natural course. I don't think in terms of this cutting edge technology that they are. I think it already existed and they're playing it out in a sequence. Now, what you need to do if you're going to do that is you need front people and cover stories to give people the impression that there are multiple different ways that this technology has been developed. And I remember I did have a laugh when I was watching it. A few years ago now, I was watching a 2-part documentary series. It was on the BBC, so you've got to be careful. But
Yeah.
it was about Silicon Valley, and I remember clearly there was a sequence where it was a series of garage doors in Silicon Valley. And they were saying behind this garage door, this was invented. Behind this garage door, this now that is, used by everyone started out life. And behind this garage door, and I was watching it, and I had this picture in my mind of people sitting around that table going, too many garage doors, mate. Someone's going to suss it, right? So, can we be a bit more creative with the cover stories? No more garage doors.
Mm.
Because you have your front men, you have your Bill Gateses, you have your Jeff Bezoses, you have your Elon Musks, and your Larry guy, what's his name?
Oh, the
The
guy that owns the Hawaiian Island, the funny looking
him,
fella,
yeah.
BlackRock, Dinky
No,
Donk.
Larry Fink
That's
is
it.
the head of BlackRock, and the guy who's currently head of the World Economic Forum. But anyway, all these Peter Thiel, another one. You have these people who are the front people, the technological front people. They're the cover stories for how this stuff is getting out there. For instance, Palantir and Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, that was seed funded by the CIA, a company called InQtel, or a CIA front called InQtel,
Mm.
which, like DARPA, the technological development arm of the Pentagon, seed funds companies and technology that it wants to develop in the interests of this control system. So for instance, in Israel, they are massively advanced in terms of technology and AI, and systematically so. And what they do is they have this place at Beersheba. It's a massive military technology cyber center, which is has something like 20,000 troops and what have you. And what it's doing, the Israeli government, they're scanning the schools and the universities, and they're looking for really gifted, talented young people in relation to technology, cyber, and all the rest of it. And when they bring them in to, what we would call the draft, they join the military after, I think it's 2 years or so in the Israeli military. They don't send them into Gaza. They park their backsides in Beersheba at this cyber center. And what then happens is Israel was called the center of startup companies, and it's like the startup nation. It was called, still operates in that same area. So what you have is technology developed in the secret projects, technology that they want in the public arena as part of this global control system. And what they do is they'll say to their students, their military students, if you like, tech students, you start this company up, a startup, and this is the technology that will give you to, yes, create a cover story for how this got into the public arena. And if you notice, and I've looked at this a lot, if you notice, you've got these startups companies, right, which just like come out of nowhere, but they suddenly attract vast amounts of investment.
Hmm.
Where did this come from? A
Yeah.
bunch of kids.
Yeah.
But because what they're doing is creating the cover story to get the technology into the public arena. Well, people think, oh, these bunch of kids came up with it. No, they didn't. It's a secret projects. They're just the cover story. And the other thing that they do in Israel, which is very significant, is they'll then send people off, these military people. That's why when you look into the background of so many of these, the people I'm talking about, you see military backgrounds and intelligence backgrounds, and they'll send off Mossad agents to start a security company, right? And or they'll send off Shin Bet agents, the domestic intelligence agency in Israel, to start a security company, and just by coincidence, nothing to worry about, one of them ended up running security on 9/11.
Mm.
Oh, just a coincidence. Nothing to concern us. But what they do is they'll send people off to Silicon Valley, and they'll become big names in the Silicon Valley arena. For instance, the guy we're thinking of is Larry Ellison, and Larry Ellison, who's being given massive media companies to buy by Trump, who's owned by Israel. He's now owns CBS and TikTok in America and all that stuff. Well, he is the biggest private funder of the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, the Israeli military. So this is how it works, and that's a long backstory leading to the subject we're talking about, which is they've also been developing technology that we call UFOs. You see, if you can disconnect the perception among the population of what's possible, what humans are capable of, you can sell them that fake cutting edge, and at the same time, your secret cutting edge is far, 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 far more advanced. When people see your cutting edge in the sky, for instance, they immediately think aliens when it doesn't have to be. Then you have craft, which I think are far more sophisticated than the human level of it, as you would expect, that are of non-human in nature. And then you have what I would call the interdimensional level of this, where people are non-human species, whatever you want to call them, entities, are coming in and out of our very narrow band of frequency that we can see, visible light, coming in and out, and they appear out of nowhere and disappear into nowhere, but they haven't. They've just come into our field of vision, which is very tiny, like I say, called visible light, and then they leave it. And to the observer, they've appeared out of nowhere and then disappeared into nowhere. But they haven't. They've just entered the frequency we can see and then left it again. So I think there are many different explanations for different different levels of this. And of course, if you are wanting to uh, make people think of it must be aliens, then you can fly these craft at the cutting edge of the secret projects, and people will think it's aliens. I'm the last person to say aliens don't exist, or non-human species, I would rather call them, exist. But I think we have to be careful that there are different levels to this, and it's important that we are very canny and streetwise and questioning about anything that they tell us. Because if they tell us, it's because they want us to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless the hand is forced, and we bring our own information out, which, as you know, I've been doing for years and years and years. Years ago, I was also, I had my own space agency. So literally, I was recruiting for the space industry at the highest level, scientists, telemetry, composite engineers, thermal engineers, propulsion engineers. And I went recently, this is the 1990s. If you wanted to work at certain space companies, you had to come through my front door across Britain and Europe. I was that woman. It was me. And years to now, I went recently to London to an international space conference because I wanted to see how further we are along with our advanced materials, composite materials. They're all the same. They're all the same. Carbon fiber, Kevlar, honeycomb, epoxy resins, right? So it really hasn't moved on that much. But suddenly the military have all this advanced craft that has been reverse engineered. They know how to, in the world of physics, collapse mass to create anti-gravity. If we look at our periodic table that we went to school learning, over the years, how many of those elements have they stolen off the periodic table to keep us further and further dumbed down? It's an absolute abhorrence. You mentioned the technology that gets rolled out by the chosen boys. If we go back down the timeline, let's look at Bill Gates. Same thing happened to him. Microsoft. Oh, did he make it in a
Yeah,
garage? Did he? Did he? What were
yeah,
his mum and dad doing? His dad was the head of Planned Parenthood, mass genocide, mass abortion. Yeah, and then we got Zuckerberg. Yeah. Oh, did that just happen? Did it? It's somewhere else in a bedroom somewhere. No, it didn't. It's completely engineered and controlled, as you rightly say. We just got to remember that everything you're saying, we can prove it. Just go down the timeline. We've got the evidence, we've got the people, and they're still doing it today. You mentioned also, among other things, that the way that the governments, the militaries, are choosing to roll out Steven Spielberg, for example, it's all aligned. So what are we expecting? Project Bluebeam? We're too far down the road, but I think they've fucked up so much in their trying to control all of humanity and keep us dumbed down still, because obviously there's a huge awakening happening,
yeah,
that they still think, I think there are certain masses of people who are still completely asleep and are going to be so in awe of all the aliens. And as you said, interdimensional is a big word that a lot of people are using now because the spirits are there all the time. Interdimensionals, demons, angels, and aliens. My first book is exactly that. Angels, demons, and aliens, the physical speeches that I've seen myself. It's everywhere. I had Steve Merrow on my channel the other day. Steve Merrow, the guy from Manchester that does the lectures in ufology, and he knows you. And he was saying also the word UAP. I'm like, no, Steve, don't say UAP because that is part of the PSYOP. That we've gone from UFOs all our lives, and now we're being groomed and programmed to say UAP because, in my opinion, they've lost the control of the masses. People like me running the conferences I do, exposing every single thing. Again, so much to go into, but let's take a step sideways to the AI matrix simulation that we're in and our band of, light, the band of awareness that you so brilliantly talk about and have really educated the masses on. So crazy when our broadcast was interrupted. The next day, I interviewed a guy called Alabar Jones. Alabar Jones. Sounds like a Welsh name, doesn't it? Ah, there's Alabar. Hello, Alabar. Anyway, brilliant guy. And what he does is he boots on the ground, but he's taken out darker entities. He's taken out demonics. There's a need for that. And he was also talking about Yaldabaoth. I'm like, oh my God, me and David were talking about Yaldabaoth the other day. Then someone else starts talking about Yaldabaoth. I'm like, bloody hell, this is obviously something we need to put into the field of education. And then when I was talking to you, you were like, well, he's one of the main AI influencers. So please share with us what your experience and understanding is of Yaldabaoth.
Well, Yoda Baoth is the name that the Gnostic uh, belief system, Gnostics were not um, a race of people. They were a people that saw the world in a certain way, and they still exist today. And they would say, and we're looking at uh, documents in the widest sense of the word, found in an earthen jar or earthen jars at Nag Hammadi in Egypt in 1945. And they've since been, so a long story, but they've since been increasingly translated. And I've read two very thick books about the translations years ago now. And interestingly, the way my life has gone, it's like certain things come into your life, certain ways of seeing what's going on, and then you kind of get confirmation in kind of often weird ways. So I had concluded, this is in the 1990s, but I kind of went public with it just after the turn of the millennium, that we live in the equivalent basically of a virtual reality universe, what we would call it like a virtual reality game, that kind of feel about it, like the Matrix movies, to be honest, that concept. And I'd concluded that, and I started to put together evidence for supporting that view. And that's when I came across the Gnostic stuff. And and the Nag Hammadi texts. And I was reading them, and they was saying that we're talking, it's reckoned that these documents, these texts were put into those earthen jars and hidden in Nag Hammadi around 400 AD, that kind of period, which fits some of the things that were going on there in Egypt at the time. And so you're talking like, what, 1600 years ago that these texts were hidden away. But they were talking about, in effect, a virtual reality, a virtual reality universe, in effect, that was created by a super negative state of awareness entity. I see it as a state of awareness, a distorted state of awareness. And they gave the name of this entity awareness as Yalda Baoth, or the demiurge. They're kind of they're used in an interchangeable way. And they were talking about the fact that this is a illusory reality that has been created to, in my terms, hijack human sense of reality, but also, crucially, sense of self-identity, like how we see ourselves. I mean, most people see themselves as human. We're not human. We are having a brief human experience, but what we are is consciousness, eternal, infinite awareness that's been trapped in this illusory reality for reasons I talk about in the books. But I was looking at that and I thought, well, that's what I bloody concluded. And these things were 1,600 years ago. And again, you know, when you what I started to say just after the turn of the millennium was that this is a virtual reality universe that's being created to hijack our perception. And I looked around at the time to see anyone in the public arena who was basically saying the same. And I really only found one guy in that period. And it was a guy called Nick Bostrom at Oxford University, was then anyway, Professor Nick Bostrom, who was talking about the fact that this could be a simulation. But if you then look from about 2016 onwards, right up to present day, and I've been writing about this all these years, you suddenly had mainstream scientists starting to say, well, actually, it does look like it's a simulation. And when you get deep into the physics and the structure of this society, of this reality, better word, it's obviously a simulation. It's obviously based on code.
Hmm.
All about encoding and decoding. That's how it's all arranged. And Darnie, in the last like couple of weeks or so, I've just been going through YouTube, just out of interest on this whole subject, and suddenly it's like you've got scientists, you've got virtual reality video game creators, and all these different people
Mm.
who are saying it's a simulation.
God.
And the kind of Gnostics had sussed that all that long ago.
Yeah.
And it's when you realize uh, that the conspiracy to enslave humanity is not Trump or Harris. That's one way it plays out. The very foundation of the conspiracy is to delude humanity into believing it's experiencing a certain reality when that reality is nothing like it thinks it's experiencing. And in doing so, you hijack self identity. So you persuade people that they are human. And when you ask them, hello, nice to meet you, who are you? They'll reel off the labels of human. They'll tell you their name, where they come from, their location now, their maybe their religion, their job, all these things. But these are not who we are. They are what we're experiencing. And the confusion between the self-identity of the I with what is actually just an experience, a series of experiences, is fundamental to completely bamboozling our sense of the world and our sense of ourselves. And so this whole matrix is designed to hijack our attention, our sense of reality, and our sense of who we are. And, you've got basically, of course, there are other people who are now waking up to another explanation. But overwhelmingly, if you look at the world, you've got people who believe that, this science story that we came from some primordial soup and ended up as Ethel on the checkout, uh, or we are subordinate to some judgmental God who we have to keep happy, otherwise we're in real trouble. And both of those self-identities are small. Subordination, what's the point? It's primordial soup. When we die, it'll be the lights go out. That's the end of it. It's a completely it completely hijacks our sense of reality, and that's the real conspiracy. And what they've done since, particularly since COVID, is they've hijacked significant tracks of the so-called alternative media. And if you look at the alternative media and the big personalities that get all the algorithmic support in America, for instance, and to an extent in other parts of the world, Europe, it's dominated by Christianity. That and if you have a religious belief system, or what it's dominated actually by not just by Christianity, but by what's called the right in politics, and these are two belief systems, which is the way that the few have always controlled the many. Because if you are faced with what we're now told is 8 billion people, and you are a relative tiny few compared with the 8 billion, then mathematically it's impossible for you to control the many. Mm-hmm. So what you have to do is break them up into belief systems, religious belief systems, political belief systems, cultural belief systems. You have to break them up, racial belief systems. Because once you, within infinite reality, within infinite possibility, you get people to lock into a story, religious story, political story, whatever. You're putting a prison cell over their mind. You're breaking up the target population from a potential unity, your worst nightmare, to different belief systems basically competing with each other. And so you put the prison cell over their mind. And it's this whole religious belief system is actually a mentality which can be identified right across society. We're told, for instance, that mainstream orthodox science is opposed to religion, that they see the world differently, but they got the same mentality. Because basically what this is all doing, many things that it's doing, including divided and ruling, but one of the key things it's doing, it's stopping the pursuit of knowledge within what's called the hidden, what's called the occult, which is the word that just means hidden. Occult, hidden knowledge can be used for grotesque reasons, and it is, or it can be used to set us free. What they don't want us to do is to go into these areas of hidden knowledge and then use them to set ourselves free with the understanding of how the game works. So when I say the religious mentality, you can see it everywhere. If you are a believer, it doesn't matter which one, by the way. If you are a religious believer, then you have a story. And if you start exploring beyond the story into the hidden areas of knowledge outside the story, then suddenly you are a blasphemer, or you are dabbling in the occult, and basically you've left the fold. You can't call yourself a so and so if you're talking like that. And then you go to orthodox science. Of course, religion has its holy books. All these different religions have their holy books, and they have their story. So does orthodox science. It has its holy books. They're the books of scientific orthodoxy, and it has its prison cell mind. So if you go beyond the limits of orthodoxy, you're suddenly a pseudoscientist or dabbling in the paranormal. And again, if you don't become subordinate to the religious story, then you're not one of us, and you're kind of pushed out. But if you don't become subordinate to the orthodox science story, the same happens to you if you're a scientist. Same happens to you if you're an academic, in the sense that if you're not parroting the story, the orthodoxy, the system's version of reality, then you are ostracized. You lose your job. You don't get funding. So many people that have sought to explore in that hidden area as scientists, academics, whatever, they've had the treatment as a result. And what's encouraging, as I've scanned through these many videos in the last 2-3 weeks, is that there is now an understanding that we're not being given the whole story, and maybe there's another version of reality waiting to be uncovered, and so more and more people are starting to break free of these limitations and go into the hidden, where the knowledge of reality and consciousness and true humans, well, not human, but true consciousness, self-identity is available. And so what you've had with the alternative media, particularly, like I say, since COVID, you've had people coming out of often the mainstream into this arena. They've got all the funding, they've got all the algorithmic support, and they are locked in to, overwhelmingly, especially in America, 2 prison cells. One is their religion, and 2, it's their political ideology. So what you want, if you are seeking to the few control the many, you have to break up the many into different belief systems. You don't care what they are, as long as they have one. And you have to then play off the belief systems against each other. So the target population is at war with itself, while you're pulling the strings of all of them, although they can't see because they're too busy seeking to impose their belief systems on others. And so what we've seen, and I the alternative media didn't exist when I started out. I watched it appear. It was just a few disparate individuals in those days trying to get information out. Not quite in the pre-internet era, but in the very early internet era, when you were still standing in the street handing leaflets out for a meeting and stuff. And in those days, as the alternative media started to appear and grow, people became aware within it. Well, it's summed up by a phrase I heard many times when I first started traveling around America talking about this. It doesn't matter who you vote for because the government still gets in. In other words, the left-right paradigm is just an illusion, because if you go one step back, both left and right are controlled by the same force. What we've seen since the turn of the COVID era is that so much of the center of the alternative media anyway has moved into this left-right paradigm again. It's like, it's the left, they're the problem. No, it's not the left, it's the right. And there you have the few in this what I call global cult looking at the result and laughing their bloody backsides off
Yeah.
because they've divided the population. And you know, if we're going to set ourselves free, we need to free ourselves from these illusions that are put before us, these dramas that are put before us to focus our attention and divide us. You're left and right, they're just different masks on the same face. Different religions, they're masks on the same face. They just come from different, slightly different directions. You talk about the Abrahamic religions. Why? Because there's so much in those Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, where they hardly kind of differ because they basically come from the same area and they encompass many of the same characters and figures that their books write about. But look at Iran now. You know, you've got the Christian world and the Jewish world fighting the Islamic world in that sense of religion, and so it's still going on. And I think the important thing, the most important thing, is that we redefine our self-identity and stop getting caught in the I am human, I am subordinate little me, subject to some God, and that we realize that not only are we consciousness, but we are actually an expression of the one consciousness that is that we're all an expression of. In other words, if you're going to, it's interesting that the parallels, because if you're the few and you're going to control the many, you have to divide the many. Well, what I'm talking about, we are one consciousness, but have been manipulated into this belief that we are a singular human consciousness. That is also part of the separation, the division between us. We're all expressions of the same awareness.
Yeah.
Uh, but how do you manipulate people who A, know what you're doing, and B, know how you're doing it, and realize that whatever we call ourselves, whatever color, race, religion we are, we're actually all one consciousness having a brief human experience. And the whole foundation of this conspiracy is, yes, to put us in a fake reality and therefore a fake sense of self-identity in the world, but it's also to divide us, and it's also to separate us from the consciousness, the true infinite I that we are,
Mm-hmm.
get us to believe that we are this human, which is merely an experience. And
Mm-hmm.
that separation from the understanding of who we are is the real reason why they are seeking to fuse humans with artificial intelligence. Because the idea, and they're openly talking about it, is to fuse humans with artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence becomes the human mind. That's what they're saying they want. And therefore, once artificial intelligence is the human mind, well, these questions that can set us free, like pursuing the hidden knowledge, like the realization that we are consciousness and not the human body, it's just a vehicle. We won't be asking those questions when AI is controlling the human mind, because AI won't be asking those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the idea. It's to reach a point of total perceptual control, therefore behavior control, so that the awakening process, which so many people are going through, is blocked. So it doesn't continue along the road to where it leads eventually, which is, hey, we're all one consciousness having a human experience. Why are we fighting each other?
Hmm. Hmm. Oh my God, there's 1,000 different ways to go. One of the things you mentioned about religion, if people just looked at one film, it would really bring them up to the present moment. And for me, that is Zeitgeist, the very first film, Zeitgeist, because in some of the opening scenes, he shows that every single major religion, bar none, has the same Trinity, the same walking on water miracles, the same flood story. It is the same setup. Then it's dominated via the part of the world someone lives, their major religion at that time, which of course causes that massive division. Jumping across to what you just said about AI, there are people out there that openly say you need an implant in order to be able to communicate with aliens. Another lie, another trap. And it's a very concerning lie because there are people in the, let's say, the UFO or the disclosure community, as people call it, who are totally plugged into this idea of accepting, give me an implant. I want to speak to the aliens. I've been talking to them for years. No implant in me, love. You know, it's a complete lie and a nonsense. And like you say, there's so much within the bandwidth that we're seeing that's happening all around us. There's so much happening around us.
Yeah, I'll
You,
just say one thing about what I'm also noticing is, and it goes on from what we've been talking about, as it becomes clearer and clearer that this is a matrix simulation, that therefore some intelligence has created, because it ain't natural. What you're seeing now is religions going, this is confirmation, this is proof that God exists because it's created our reality. I mean, just look at the evidence now that this has been created. When if we go back to Yoda Bayoth, this is how I see it anyway, it's what I've put together over these decades. We are living in a infinite field of consciousness, an infinite field of consciousness, which represents all possibility, all potential. People talk about, quote, God being everything, or all that is, has been, and ever can be. And people with their programmed minds, programmed by the system, immediately say that's not possible. You can't be all that is, has been, and ever can be. But what is that describing? All possibility. And for this consciousness to be all possibility, all potential, it has to be all that is, has been, and ever can be. So you've got this infinite field of infinite possibility. And then you've got the matrix. And the matrix is a field of limited possibility. And the human body is our interaction with this field, this matrix field, this simulation field. And the idea is to manipulate humanity to be in the matrix and of the matrix. Now, we're all in the matrix because the human bodies that we are, that are our current vehicle, is our interaction with the matrix. So we're all in the matrix, but you don't have to be of the matrix. If you're of the matrix, it means you're getting your information and you're getting your perceptions from this limited possibility of the simulation. what awakening is, and this is why it's so important. Like I was saying a few minutes ago, if you were this global cult and its non-human masters, I would suggest, that is behind this matrix, you would look at the COVID era and you would see that enormous numbers of people, compared with before, were starting to awaken to at least some levels of the conspiracy. That they were seeing how the world, in terms of authority, reacted almost in totality, not quite, but almost, in relation to the way they responded to COVID. It was the same story. It was coming out of the World Health Organization, a cult operation. And you would then look at that and you'd say, well, look, COVID was very important to us because it gave us so much, but it's actually woken up a lot of people. Yeah, okay. So these people who are waking up to at least some levels of it, where are they getting their information from? And they'd say, well, it's not the mainstream media, which we control, because they have contempt for it, these people. That's why they're waking up. So you think, well, okay, so they're getting it from this alternative media, right? Yeah, okay. So we need to take that over. We need to control that. And so if you have the alternative mentality, or that which you algorithmically and financially support, that's controlled and limited by its sense of religion and its sense of political ideology, you create a barrier to expansion of awareness. So you start off in the box, and then you start to realize, hold on a minute, there's some kind of conspiracy going on here. What you want them to do is to stop. It's political, that's what it is, and it's financial, and it's secret society. You want them to stop there. You don't want them going any further. The genie's out of the bottle. You can't put it back, but you don't want it to come any further out, right?
Yeah.
So you present the conspiracy as this world. Basically, you're in the matrix and of the matrix, but you're still there. You've got a slightly wider field of vision now. You can see there's a conspiracy, but it's still a box. It's still a limited prison cell. What they don't want you to do, and this is what real awakening is to go beyond that and to realize the scale of the conspiracy. And it's in the scale that the answers to it lie. You can't find answers here. And what happens is, as you expand your awareness, by expanding your self-identity from realizing that you're not your body, you're not your name, you're not even your life story, you are consciousness having that experience. And as you expand your sense of self, your self-identity, automatically with that expansion of identity, you're expanding your consciousness and tapping into deeper and deeper levels of the infinite level of awareness, the infinite consciousness. And there comes a point where you break out of the matrix limitation field, which is what it is. It's a field of information. And suddenly you start tapping in to that level of awareness that is beyond the matrix, beyond the limitations of the matrix. And at that point, suddenly everything looks different, because you're in the matrix through the body, but you're not of it anymore. You can see things you couldn't see before. So many people have said to me over the years, it's so obvious, mate. Why didn't I see it before? It's because you were there before, and now you're here, and now you can see it, because you're tapping into those levels of consciousness that are beyond the matrix and thus can see it.
Hmm.
They're not subject to its limitations. They're not subject to its manipulation.
Hmm.
Suddenly you can see it. And this is the awakening that the creators and orchestrators of the matrix, whether the global cult in the human world or the non-human level in another dimension, it's that's their big terror, that enough people are going to tap in to that beyond the matrix level of awareness, because then everything changes. That's their big massive fear, that will happen, and that is why they want human AI fusion to stop that happening.
Hmm. Absolutely. Brilliant and beautifully stated. Thank you. And it's great that you bring in so many different layers of observation and thought and an invitation to think, because sometimes all it takes is for someone to go, "Oh my God, I never thought of that." And then that's it. Boom. The mind is expanding. We're reaching out into that pool of consciousness and bringing in other elements, or suddenly coming across a book or a person or whatever. The weekend that just went past, May 16th, it seemed that May 16th was such a big weekend all over the world for very many different reasons. Big things were happening. In England, as you know, there was a march. There were two marches. And it's so interesting that no matter who anyone is, no matter any time they put their head above the parapet and say, right, I'm not happy about this, we're getting together because of X, Y, and Z. And then other people come along and they go, oh my God, Israel owns you, you're this, you're that. You know what that's like more than anyone. It's so difficult. But the two marches, one was Free Palestine. I, as an individual thinker, couldn't give a shit. I don't know what left is. I don't know what right is. I'm never going to bother finding out because I'm not playing the game. All I care about is if people are murdering men, women, and children, no matter where they are in the world, I'm not okay with it. Put a label on it. I'm not okay with it. So there was a march on Palestine, Free Palestine. Then there was a massive march, hundreds of thousands, some say up to 2.5, 3 million. Obviously the media, the scumbags, the Daily Whale, bloody Money papers, all the terrible newspapers that we have to suffer under. Oh, there were 50,000 people. Oh, there were this amount of people. Point being, a man called Tommy Robinson, that's not his real name, of course, and a lot of people don't use their real name, and we know that. Doesn't mean they're being fake. It means it's there for different reasons. So, as you know, he has stood up saying, I've grown up in Luton, and there's a group of radical Islamists trying to take over the country. Then we take a look at their book, their holy book, and we realize that they have an agenda to actually dominate the world. That's true. So he's come out, he's marching, other people are on stage pushing against the digital ID. And then notice how the British useless government that have been useless for decades, not just, doesn't matter who's in, Conservatives, Labour, doesn't matter who's in, they're all effing up. And the people of Britain put a petition together to say we don't want digital ID. And yet again, the people of Britain are being shown you're not, but we don't care. We're doing it anyway, or we're trying it anyway. So all these people come together. They're standing on stage. My mate Andrew Bridgen, who was a former MP, he's out there talking about my mate in prison in Germany, Dr. Rainer Fulmick. So some really beautiful things happened. There were old people, there were children, there were dogs, there were people marching together because they love their country and they don't want things that are happening to happen. But there were so many subjects. It wasn't just one subject. Now, what is your thinking on that kind of a gathering?
Well, I mean, this is why it's so important to get streetwise, to get informed and streetwise, so that you can see the subtleties. Because you know this this cult is in a circle anyway, and certainly this non-human level of it is absolutely brilliant at manipulating human perception. And we have to stop seeing the world in black and white, because it don't see the world in black and white. Its manipulation is more subtle than that, but it wants us to see it like that. So, for instance, Tommy Robinson is a big supporter of Israel, is a very big supporter of Israel. Um, and yet, if you do the research, it's elements and networks connected to Israel that have been behind the manipulation of open borders and the movement of vast numbers of people from other cultures into Europe and into the United States. And you look at the extremist rabbis, etc., in Israel, and they will openly tell you, and you can see examples of it on the internet, where they have this concept of Edom, and Edom was an area of land, like a nation in what's claimed to be the ancient Middle East. And what they symbolize Edom as is the West. They saw the Romans that came and plundered that area as basically Edom, and they see the West as Edom. And in their belief system, they want to destroy, they believe that the West must be destroyed, Edom, before their Messiah can come. This is why you've got some of these extremist rabbis, and we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that people like Netanyahu have this belief system too, at least outwardly. Some of these extremist rabbis have said that Trump will be basically remembered eternally for his role in destroying Edom, which is actually what he's doing, but for other reasons as well. And they talk about the fact that Islam is like the broom to sweep away the West, Edom. And so for this reason, and much wider reasons too, you've got networks operating out of Israel that have been manipulating in the background to cause this enormous number of people to move up into Europe and from the South into the United States. And let's not forget that you had because this is all connected, and this cult plays the long game. It's not trying to do this in 5 minutes, gets faster nearer its goal, but this goes back a long way. At the time of 9/11, which was a totally manufactured a mega psyop involving the United States, deep state inner circle, and Israel's. I've written a book called The Trigger, came out in 2019, which is a very thick book that absolutely demolishes the official story and shows the Israel connection to what happened. And you had this situation in America with a organization dominated by ultra-Zionists answering to Israel, called the Project for the New American Century. And it produced a document in September 2000, which wanted to which did lay out the way it wanted the world to change ongoing with the American government. Many people that were involved came to power with Boy George Bush in the following January. And 9 months later, to the month, September 2001, you had 9/11, which gave the excuse to do what was in that document. Because what did it say? It said that they wanted regime change in Libya, Iran, and a stream of Syria, and a stream of Middle Eastern countries. Iraq, Saddam Hussein was in there at the time, and so on. And as a result of 9/11, they got systematically, step by step, over a period of time, some of them quickly, some of them longer, what they were basically looking for in that document. And the one that they still hadn't got was Iran. And that's why Netanyahu, who was very, very, very closely connected to the Project for the New American Century, produced that document, has been going on since the 1990s to try to get America to attack Iran. So put all this together, and the fact that Tommy Robinson is a vehement supporter of Israel and promotes the interests of Israel is a bloody irony of ironies when he's saying we must stop the influx of migrants into Britain, which this network out of Israel is overwhelmingly responsible for. And I would add somebody else who's very very famous or infamous within the alternative media, George Soros. George Soros is supposed to be a Jewish guy in America, a multi-billionaire. He's very old now. The other members of his family have taken over. But he started an organization, or branches of this organization, called the Open Society Foundations. And it should, because of what it did and does, be called the Open Book Foundations. And the game has been to promote Soros as being antagonistic to Israel. So you kind of had the Soros Netanyahu kind of that they don't get on, they don't agree with each other, right? Well, because you've had the control of the Republican Party in America, the right, as it's claimed, through Israel, but you've also had the Democrats, the left, that have George Soros over the decades as its massive, massive funder. So basically, Netanyahu identifies, at least in public, with the right. Okay, so you've got your left placed George Soros, and you can't really have them as best mates. It's not a good look, and people might suss something. Mm-hmm. You've got to keep them apart so that people think they are not connected. But the Open Society Foundations have manipulated events to bring about this massive influx of people into the United States and into Europe from other cultures, which is precisely what the Israelis want to bring down Edom and to advance their agenda. but we're supposed to believe that Soros is on one side and Netanyahu's Israel is on the other. It's not true. It's a game. It's about perceptual manipulation. So they've actually been working as one unit all along.
Yeah.
And so either Tommy Robinson needs to do a bit more bloody research and get better informed, or maybe we're not seeing everything that's it's possible to see. Now, in terms of the reaction, and in terms of the two marches, the Palestinian pro-Palestinian march and the Robinson march, well, there you have a classic of sides. You've got sides where a lot of the people in the Robinson march would be against the Palestinian march because they're pro-Israel. A lot of them wouldn't be, by the way, but a lot of them would. And then you've got the Palestinian march; they're anti-Israel. There's your division straight away. Now, again, and we come back to this whole thing about religion. Suddenly, Tommy Robinson's found religion. He was standing on stage delivering the Lord's Prayer at this march, whereas the obviously the Palestinian whole area and the Middle Eastern area is kind of Islam. So you're against Islam because you don't like the migration and what have you. And Israel is saying, "Oh, we're the bulwark against Islam. We're holding it back. Hold on a second. You're making it head for bloody Europe, you bloody liars." So you've got these sides that you create, and you've got this religious basis to a lot of it. Now, if you want to put aside this division, you don't need a religion. In fact, the last thing you bloody need, what you need is a sense of empathy, a sense of compassion, a sense of justice, and a sense of fairness. That's all you bloody need. Mm-hmm. Because you've got on one side in this division, you've got people who don't care about the Palestinians and what the Israeli government has done to them since October the 7th. And because they're Muslim and they're different to you. And then on another side, you've got Islam coming in. Not all the people who follow Islam, not even nearly all people, but you've got major people who come in and they want to bloody take over. And they are working to systematically take over. So you've got cities now that like Leicester, where I grew up, that is now it's a minority of white people in there because all the people that have come in, and other cities too. Now, if you have a sense of empathy, compassion, and a sense of justice and a sense of fairness, then you would first of all look at what the Israelis have done in Gaza to the people, and you would be freaking outraged. If you had a sense of all those things, you would look at what happened on October the 7th, and you would be outraged at not because one's Jewish and one's Muslim.
Of course not.
But because of what was done to fellow human beings was appalling. Now, there's a whole other story about why the Hamas attack on October the 7th was allowed to happen, and bloody was allowed to happen. Look at the evidence. But on the other side, if you're coming into another country with another culture, then you wouldn't desire to take it over and impose your culture upon them. You wouldn't do it, because empathy, compassion, a sense of fairness and justice would stop you doing it. And what we're seeing, Danny, is empathy, compassion, fairness, and justice for your side, whatever it may be, and sod the same things for another side. Now, if we're going to come together and put down the fault lines of divide and rule, which allow the few to control the many, then we have to express empathy, compassion, fairness, and justice to all people, even those we disagree with, stunningly. And in that way, we can have our beliefs and our way of living, but we don't seek to impose it on anyone else. And you know, I mean, I talk about Leicester because I grew up there in the English East Midlands. And there are great areas of Leicester now, which are not the city, not the culture that I grew up in. And if you've been brought up in a certain culture, a certain way the city and life unfolds, and suddenly another culture has taken it over, then don't expect the people to be happy about that. And so what they're trying to do is to paint, again, the left-right divide. They're trying to paint everybody in the Palestinian as being left wing and all that stuff, when it, you know, you don't have to be left, right, or center to have compassion for what's happened to the Palestinians in Gaza since October the 7th. But they're also trying to paint everybody, there will be some, but everybody in the Robinson March as being far right and anti-Muslim by definition, that's just what they are. And there'll be enormous numbers of people in that Robinson March that simply do not want the country they grew up in being taken over by another culture. And you know, when I was a kid and I first heard about where it went into all these countries and took them over, I was only a little kid at the time. I was absolutely appalled at that. What kind of arrogance does it take to just go into a country, take it over, and run it? And the population then becomes subordinate to you, the invader. What? I couldn't get my head around it as a kid.
Yeah.
But when it happens in reverse, it don't make it any better. It don't make a wrong right. It's just another wrong. But the point is that we are where we are now, and what we need to do is suss why we're where we are. It's been all manipulated. The incoming migrants on a mass scale have been just as manipulated as the indigenous population by the same force. And put down the fault lines. Let's stop trying to impose our beliefs on everyone else. And just, okay, you believe that, that's fine. Just don't impose it on me and we'll get on. You impose it on me or try to, then we got a problem. And if we could just, and again, to let go of this prison of the mind religion which is only there to divide and rule us.
Hmm.
So I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. I'm not a Christian, but someone saying I'm a Christian. Okay, so you're an Abrahamic religion, then? Yeah. And what are you? Oh, I'm a Muslim. Okay, that's an Abrahamic religion. And people don't realize, that um, Islam believes in a stream of people in the Old and New Testaments. They believe in Abraham, a big Islamic figure. They believe in Moses. They believe in Jesus. They believe in um, Mother Mary. The streams of them. So, but Muhammad was the latest prophet of God that superseded Jesus. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah.
Excuse me, it's the end of playtime. It's gone. Back to school.
Oh God.
Unbelievable. It's
And it
unbelievable.
really is. And they use the same iconic archangel, Archangel Gabriel or
Exactly.
Gibral. Like, who is the real Archangel Gabriel? Please step forward. How are you influencing the Christian religion? And how are you a founder, a literal founder on a mountain with the Prophet Muhammad to create the commandments or the rules for the Quran? And you come down the mountain with your sword, like, this is what Archangel Gabriel told me, and that becomes the living religion of Islam.
Well,
People don't realize.
we're back to extraterrestrial and interdimensionals, aren't we?
Indeedy doody, yes, we are, and people need to get a clue because that then
Yeah.
lends into invitation to expand thinking outside of the perception, the bandwidth, as you said, to the supernatural, to the wondrous. And if you can believe in a God or you have all this passion and love for something you've never seen, they call it blind faith. Of course, you're feeling something. And where have you come from? Like you said, we're not the body, we're a soul or we're a consciousness having an experience, and people are finally waking up to that. We'll go back to the one of the most unattractive. They're all so unattractive, hideous, monstrous, hybrid somethings. Soros, the man with all the luggage under his eyes, the old fart that's had to step down because he's now 1,000 years old and now his son's taken over. The kids can be worse than the fathers before them because they've got something to prove.
And
Soros,
also, they've been programmed all their lives to follow the father.
absolutely. And psychopathized, the sociopathic, psychopathic horrors, the unfeeling, those that come in with, no, this is my planet, and we run this quadrant and they run that quadrant, and they've got no empathy whatsoever or any ability to feel justice, justice for others or any kind of kindness. They prove it over and over. Soros, when I was living in America, which I did for over the last 20 years, witnessing the kids coming over, people running, they call them the caravans of people. So when Biden was in power, he let countless women and children and men over the borders, just countless, and it was proven that there were crisis actors, as they call them. There were paid elements to come illegally over. And I remember a friend of mine, Sasha League, and I were going to go down to the border at Tijuana or San Diego, the border there, because that's where I lived in San Diego, because we'd heard about all the kids in cages. And again, we can go further down the timeline. That was Obama. Then you got Biden. There's been these terrible bad behaviors of governments infiltrating every single country, and of course lying over and over and over again. And it hasn't stopped, and it's happening now. And the other thing for people to look at is that every single president, without exception, is bloodline. And Netanyahu apparently is related to the current Hungarian prime minister. I forget his name, but he's got nice hair. I hope he's not evil. He probably is. They all pretty much are, aren't they? But he's been pumped up as a bit of a character, this one. But they're cousins or second cousins via someone's mum. People are missing that point, that the game playing above us by all the governments is
Yeah.
completely orchestrated, and they're all on the same side.
Yeah. Can I give you a
No.
my fix my suggestion about the whole Trump MAGA thing, um, because you clearly had the open borders Soros orchestrated massively the southern border of the United States. And the Biden administration, well, it wasn't the Biden administration, was it? It didn't know his name in the
No, it was
end.
Obama. It was
Yeah,
the Obama administration.
that was allowing it all to happen, right? So when you allow, we're back to fairness and justice here. When you allow injustice to prevail, you're going to get a pushback. You're going to get a pushback. And it's a pushback that you can use to destroy the pushbackers, right? So you get Trump coming out and he's saying, we must close the border. It's all terrible what's going on. Of course, those people, massive numbers of people in America, who were looking at the border and going, hold on a minute, the people are just walking across, they got behind Trump. And he was telling them that he was not going to fight any foreign wars. Well, it didn't last bloody long, but anyway. But there were many things. If the MAGA, I had support for in terms of what they were opposing, right? And Trump comes in and he tells them that he's opposing them. But what Trump has done is go back on lots of things he said he would do and wouldn't do, not least Iran, etc., and the tariffs and all. Well, the tariffs are all part of this economic upheaval and chaos. But because of his behavior and his dismantling mind, and because he's done so much that was absolutely against what the MAGA supported him for, he is destroying MAGA. He's destroying it. There's a massive withdrawal of support. It's now the rump of the real MAGA extremists who can't bring themselves to go, we've been had. So you keep trying to support him in the hope that it will be different. It won't. That's not what he's there for. And what I'm saying is, if the MAGA were the pushbackers against the woke, open border, climate change hoax agenda, well, Trump has told them what they want to hear, got into power, and now he's destroyed and discredited that whole MAGA movement to the point where loads and loads of people have now left it. And basically, what was happening was you had this build-up of opposition, which Trump tapped into, to the what was the cult agenda in all these things that Trump said he was against. And Trump's behavior, the cult gopher, has now destroyed the unity of that pushback. So if a Democrat comes in next time, well, he's going to have a free bloody run because the opposition has been absolutely scattered. And what will come in? Well, all the things that the MAGA had come together to oppose. They've basically used Trump to destroy the opposition to what they want.
Fascinating. So people will ask the question, well, then what do I do? What do I do? How do I sort this out? And you, David, Icke, and I, we have an answer, a great answer, a great opportunity for people to come and be with a group of people who have verified and proven their evidence, who come from the governments, from the militaries. Our friend Kathy O'Brien, who was abused as a little girl and used as an adult, sex mule, deliverer of information, passing secrets around to global leaders, but being passed around with her little body, as was her daughter. Horrendous things that people go, no, not my king, not my president, not this, not that. But yeah, sorry, but yeah. So should we share with people a little bit about what we're doing in September?
Yeah, well, I've not done a multi-speaker conference for a very long time. I've done my own events, but when I saw the lineup for this one, I thought I'm doing that because there are some fantastic people there who specialize in different areas that will allow the people that come to get streetwised in so many different elements of this conspiracy and in this nature of reality, spirituality arena. I'm going to be, I think, doing two presentations that will connect the dots between everything. And then there's others that are specializing in particular areas. And I just think it's a fantastic event. I think you need to be congratulated for getting these people together, and I hope that that people will attend, and they're going to get an enormous amount out of it. I mean, they'll probably leave as different people to those that arrived on the basis of the information that's going to be put before them.
Absolutely. And so again, just going over you, David Icke, Billy Carson, he's coming in from America. Kathy O'Brien, our friend, CIA, Pentagon, mind control. Praveen Mohan, who's gifted more on the ancient technologies that was hidden in the temples than anyone else to date. Tony Rodriguez, kidnapped, sold into a satanic occult situation as a little boy, and then sold on into the American military. Him and this guy, JP, have been on reverse engineered anti gravity craft that the American military have that gets to the moon in 10 minutes. Again, NASA has lied, and we are bringing out every single imaginable proof with eyewitnesses, people who've experienced it. Nikki Allen, the beautiful spiritual angel connector. We need all the elements as we're awakening, as we're coming to truth, but we need that connection for, between heart, mind, and soul as well. Max Lowen is the one who survived the Vatican being trafficked as a little girl under the Vatican, the Jesuit center she was in, and her stories are so harrowing. It blows up the Catholic religion and what the Pope is all about. It blows it to smithereens. Guy Anderson, who I know you're also working with for the Tartarian Empire, the code breaker, the one who brings the truth on the last human reset. Myself, an experiencer all my life, angels, demons, and aliens, grounded in fact, and knowing that my role is to bring these amazing people from all over the world together and the beautiful audience. You got to be in the room. The tickets are so cheap for what you're getting. 3 days and 2 nights, £270. To have David Icke, Kathy O'Brien, Praveen Mohan, all these incredible people. Then there are other tickets you can have also that are cost a bit more, but the basic one is 270 quid. We are so proud of this event. I've been doing this for absolutely years now, David, as you know. This is the biggest year because nobody has been more awakened than humanity itself. And all the layers and levels of truth need to be grounded with people who have the information. And I believe I have gathered the greatest speakers in the world in their field of expertise at this very moment. And that's not sales talk. I couldn't care less about it. I care about humanity and I stand strong for that, and we're so grateful that you're coming. And yes, you're doing two presentations. On the first night, which is the Thursday night, the 10th of September, we finish at 6 o'clock that day. Everyone everyone goes for dinner. They can come back if they want in the evening at 8. And Nikki Allen and I and our beautiful Kathy O'Brien, we're going to give a beautiful kind of spiritual connection with the audience for those that want it. It's not for everyone. That's why we're giving opportunity to come or not come. It's part of the ticket. And then after the event ends on the second day, the 11th of September, where we'll be honoring the many who were part of that awful satanic ritual, lost their lives on 9/11. But in the evening, we're all going to go down to the beach. There'll be other people from everywhere all around because that part's free. We'll be playing sacred instruments and again communing and connecting and seeing what craft fly over because there's craft in the sky all the time. Last year, from RAF Lakenheath, a brand new TR9 flew over and we all saw it and we all photographed it. The media, the mainstream media, they killed it. They killed every story that related to what happened at our event because at every single GISIC, Galactic Spiritual Informers connection, ever, David, we've always had craft come over. And we know, as you said earlier, some of them are flown by the military. They're not UFOs at all. They're military craft, but others are from interdimensional, inner earth, wherever you want to decide they're from.
Inner
Uh,
Earth, yeah.
Inner Earth, Agartha as it's known. There's just, and all of the myths and legends that we were programmed to disbelieve after the age of 7, when we're told that's your imagination, it's all birthing now in the most beautiful way. So we could not be prouder to have you, David Icke. And it's always such a pleasure to have you on my channel and just share time with you. So as we have to bring this to a close right now, but we'll have you back, of course. What would you like to leave with the people watching you right now in terms of
Well,
message?
I would just say that if people wanted to get up to speed um, from naught to 100 in 3 days, this event is the one to be at if they can, because the information that's going to be presented is just going to be amazing, and it's all connected. Everything's connected to everything else. And we did a chat between the speakers with yourself a few weeks ago now, quite a few weeks ago now. And they are amazing people, and I'm going to be absolutely delighted to meet them all and to spend time with them, and the audience will love it.
The audience will love it, absolutely. Well, David Icke, sir, thank you so much again for gracing my channel with your beautiful presence and your information. And to you guys out there, I am Danny Henderson. I send you so much love from my heart to yours. Get your tickets at galacticspiritualinformers.com. That's all you need, galacticspiritualinformers.com. And I will see you soon. Thanks, David.
Thank you. Bye.